Is Israel actually losing the public relations war? Opinion polls indicate that the public support for Israel is actually at a 20-year high, and has remained high despite the ground incursion in Gaza. A WSJ Ipsos poll from the 20th of October found an increase from 27 to 42 Americans taking the Israeli side, and a decrease from 7 to 3 taking the Palestinians' side. Compared to before Hamas massacre, 75 Americans have a favorable view of the Israeli people, up from 67 in 2022. Regarding the UN resolutions, the GA has always been heavily against Israel, because of the Arab voting bloc. This is a good overview. Because Arab lobbying bloc, it is a guaranteed 100 votes from the OIC nations and poor African states, as well as a few key abstentions from East Asia for almost every resolution. The Arabs can pretty much strongarm anything through the UNGA. This is why Israel realized as early as the 1960s that it was no use reacting to every UNGA resolution. Abba Eban, one of Israel's biggest diplomatic figures, quipped if Algeria introduced a resolution declaring that the earth was flat and that Israel had flattened it, it would pass by a vote of 164 to 13 with 26 abstentions. Remember that the UN GA Resolution 3379, declaring Zionism itself a form of racism and racial discrimination, was in effect between 1975–91. The international support for Israel has risen significantly since then. Even the Arab world has stuck by the Abraham Accords, all the while condemning Israel in words. For example, the chairman of Foreign Affairs Committee at the UAE Federal National Council said today that the Abraham Accords are our future and we want everyone to acknowledge and accept that Israel is there to exist. The Saudis too have indicated that normalization is still on the cards once the war with Hamas is over. Of course, Israel faces significant challenges on the public relations front, but the aggressive rhetoric that you often see on social media and during marches seems to be representative of only a minority. All I know is that when I studied international relations in college in the early the idea of normal relations between Saudi Arabia and Israel did not seem conceivable. In my TikTok and Instagram feeds, I see lots of support from Palestine. As long as Israel retains the favor of Congress and the Biden administration, that's all that actually matters. I'm part of the 55 that thinks the whole situation is idiotic and has been idiotic for decades. It's like watching a hillbilly feud endlessly escalating. A shame for all the people stuck between fanatics. Israel has lost the PR battle on the street. Normal people look at their actions and see nothing but brutality for the sake of brutality. Israel is the most unhinged country on earth right now. However, it seems like the media and political elites are all in for Israel. To be fair, Israel has always lost the war of global public opinion since its existence. If you look at their social media, the Israeli government already recognizes this and really gave up trying to please people. A lot of their comments include dunking on and trolling the UN and human rights organizations and speaking to the ultra-nationalist Israeli public. Any public support from any international evangelicals is a bonus. I doubt that they are losing in the sense that they ever had unanimous support. People never liked Israel and agreed with what they are doing. It's been that way. The Israel-Palestine conflict is probably one of the, if not the most controversial conflicts on the world. It's just that we are reliving another major blow-up between the two just like in the years past. And the same arguments and opinions are being thrown around. People think public opinions is Twitter. Half the people there are Russian and Iranians pretending to be Americans. Well, it's kinda hard to win PR campaign when you're an apartheid state that is bombing civilians by the hundreds and thousands, no matter how horrible the attack on your civilians was. I'm in Washington state. Generally the liberals lean towards Palestine and the conservatives lean toward Israel. At least from the people I know. I think most people want it to stop, but it doesn't look like either Israel or Hamas are going to let up. Unfortunately, lots of people will probably die before there is peace. They are losing, because they're murderers. Death to Hamas and Israel. Long live free Palestine, Palestine. Remember, polls come from people. What kind of person sits there on the phone to answer a pollster's questions? Old and highly opinionated people. Israel has not had a ground incursion over the last 20 years because they didn't want to deal with everything that they are dealing with now. But you can't keep ignoring this. People who say Israel is losing the PR war are new to this. They are reacting to an apparent spike in anti-Israel and anti-Semitic incidents. But they clearly do not remember the intifadas and what PR that received. It might not be losing the PR war in the US, but it likely is losing the PR war worldwide. I don't think so. I think the silent majority support Israel. I also saw protest from the Israel crowd, but media not covering it. I can't say for the US. But the support for Palestine is very vocal and aggressive. Support for Israel is very strong, but many people won't speak out because of this. It is far too early to make any judgments about who is winning or losing the PR war. Too much is changing hour by hour. Give it 6 months and then ask the question. Yup. It looks like it. I think most pro-Israel advocacy has the centrist wing of politics and the establishment firmly won over. Any prestigious company, firm or occupation will have most people at least nominally pro-Israel. At a grassroots level, however, the war seems to be a losing one. Since when has killing ended killing? A lot of people think more of stray dogs and cats than Palestinians. That's why we're here. We should just give Israelites a place in Alaska or something. It's hard to cover up a genocide these days. I think it's been very true for Europe, especially among young people in Europe. They've lost China and Russia. 2 big blows. I rather lose public support than my country and its people, culture and history. The death toll in Gaza is over 8,000. This is clearly a mass murder that is about to become a genocide. It's hard to win public support when what you're doing is so obviously evil. Young people, particularly on the left, have become more and more pro-Palestine. As America gets less religious and less white, it will also become more pro-Palestine. The only ones who are pro-Israel are bought-off politicians and boomer evangelicals. And the boomers will be gone in 20 years or so, leaving millennials and zoomers in charge, who are leaning way more to the left and way more Palestine. Polls can be biased and skewed. I don't hold them in high regard anymore, especially with our grand old mockingbird media. Crying on social media by millions is very effective. Claiming genocide when there is none is the icing on the cake. The Hamas attacks come across as terrorist rather than war, which is naturally going to push perspectives in the West towards thinking about attacks on their own country. If you attack unarmed teenagers at a music festival, I'm not gonna be on your side even if I had sympathy for your cause prior to that due to the other side's constant oppression of your people. Attack their army and decision makers, not their children. I think you might get that impression if you only listen to left-leaning media. Also because there are now more Muslims in the West who feel empowered to openly show their support. For a jihadi organization such as Hamas or IJ or MB,